Okay, let's talk about complete the square technique. Now we are still learning about quadratic equation, right? So we're still learning more about quadratic equation, and we are now going to study the technique called complete the square, right? Complete the square. Okay, so what was quadratic equation? Well, quadratic equation is the equation that looks like this, right? Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. And we have a, b, c is a real number, and we have a condition that a cannot be equal to 0, right? If a is equal to 0, then we do not have the first term, then that's a problem, right? So we are trying to solve quadratic equation, and we talked about why it has possibly two solutions in our previous lecture. So let's say we try to solve x squared plus 6x plus 7 equals 0. Let's say we try to solve this. Now, your first response for solving something like this should be factoring. So, if I have to do something like this, I'll at least try to factor like this, right? This is just a special form, a particular form that we do not have number here. We just have 1, and we have b and c. So I'm trying to figure out the two number combination, multiply to be 7, add it to be 6. So I'm trying to figure out the number, multiply to be 7, add it to be 6. And we realize that we do not have that type of combination. So this factoring technique is not going to work. Well, if it doesn't work, then what do we do now then? I mean, if it doesn't work, then what do we do? Well, when it doesn't work with the factoring, now we can use several other options, and one of the options is called complete the square technique. So we are going to rewrite this by slightly different format. So we're going to write x squared plus 6x. Once you write the x squared term and the x term, now what we are going to do, we are going to set up a plus box and a minus box plus 7 equals 0, like that. You're going to set up a plus box and a minus box. And we're trying to figure out the number that we're going to put it in these two boxes. And we are actually going to put the same number. So because we are putting same number, technically speaking, these numbers will cancel each other. So we're not really changing anything from the given original equation. Now, number that we are going to put here inside the box will be determined by this number right here. What we are going to do, we are going to divide this number by half. Divide this by half. So 6 divided by half would be what? Would be 3, right? Are we going to put the 3? Well, not yet. After we get this number, we are going to square this number and put it in. So what's 3 square? Well, 3 square is 9. So we're going to put 9 there. Since we put 9 there, we are also going to put 9 there too. So because we put 9 there, we're going to put 9 there too. And that's determined by this number. Whatever that we number, then we're going to divide by 2. Now, let me clarify a few things. Are we always going to divide this number 6 number right in front of the x? Yes. Are we always going to be divide this number by this number 2? Yes. It's always 2. Right? We are always going to divide whatever number that we have in front of x, divide by 2. Right? Then are we always going to square it, the result, and put it in? Yes. Always square, always 2. This is fixed, 2. Alright. Once we do that, now what do we do? Well, once we do that, now we're going to group this first 3 together and then deal with the rest. So let's take a look at this first 3. Right? Let's take a look at this first 3. Now, can we factor this? Yes, we can, right? Yes, we can. So let's try to set it up like this. What would be the two number combination multiplied to be 9, added to be 6? Well, think about it. What would be the two number combination that I'm going to put here and here? Multiplied to be 9, added to be 6. Well, they are 3 and 3, both 3. Yes. And now, what about these two? 9 minus 9 plus 7. What is it? That's a minus 2 equals 0. All right. Now, we can slightly rewrite this as x plus 3 square. And I'm going to move this negative to the other side, equal 2. Just like that. Just like that. Right? All right. We are almost there. Now what do? Well, we solve this using the square root technique. So, I mean, the technical word, the term that we often say is taking square root on both sides. You know, so we are taking square root here, and we are taking square root there. Now, whenever that we take square root on both sides, there is this automatic plus and minus comes along, right? Automatic plus and minus comes along. So what happens with this square and the square root? Now we talked about the square root in our previous lecture. So what is, because square root means what? Square root of x means what? It's x to the half power, right? So that square and the half power, they will cancel each other. So what we have now is x plus 3, because that square root cancels out, equal plus minus square root of 2. That's what we have, right? That's what we have. Now what? Now I'm going to move this plus 3 to the other side. Then x equal negative 3. Now I'm going to separate this, just to avoid any confusion. I'm going to separate this plus case and the minus case. So let's say minus square root of 2k's and x equal negative 3 plus square root of 2k's. There we have it. This is our final answer. Final answer for what? Final answer for this original equation. So those two answer, right? X equal negative 3, negative square root 2, x equal negative 3 plus square root 2. Those two answers are those solution for this equation, which means if we put those values in place of x right here and here, we will have this side to be equal to 0, right? Equal to 0. So there we have it. And that setting up the plus box and the minus box, then the whole works. That technique is called complete the square root. Complete the square root. Okay. Now let's try one more example, right? So example, let's say solve, and the equation that we're trying to solve is this x squared minus 8x plus 6 equal 0. Now again, just like all the other video lecture that you are watching, whenever that I propose a question, I want you to stop the video and try this on your own and check the answer with me. If this is like a normal lecture, I'll probably pause and give my students, a couple of minutes, like maybe 3 to 5 minutes, ask them to try it, then I'll verify the answer together. So you should do that too. Stop the video and try this on your own and check the answer with me. All right. So let's say I'm going to use the complete the square technique here. So once we have first x term, x squared term, and the x term like that, then we are going to set up the plus box and the minus box. Plus 6 equal 0. Now, is it always like plus box and minus box? Yes, always like that, right? Always like that. Okay, now what do we do? Well, we're going to figure out what number that we're going to put it inside here. And as I told you, that number will be determined by this number, right? This number. So negative 8 is going to be what? It's going to be divided by 2. Is it always 2? Yes. Result is negative 4. Now, what do we do with this negative 4? We square it, square negative 4 and put it in. What's negative 4 times negative 4? Well, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16, right? When you square any number, any real number to be precise, then it's always going to be positive, right? So it's going to be positive 16, and that's the number, the same number, 1 plus, 1 minus. They cancel out, so it becomes the original. Okay, now what do we do next? Now we're going to combine first 3 terms. Do we always combine first 3 terms? Answer is yes. Then what do we do with this? We factor it. So let's factor this. So, I'm going to set it up like that. Try to figure out this 2 number combination. Multiplied to be 16, added to be negative 8. Think about it. Multiplied to be 16, added to be negative 8. What are those 2 numbers? Well, they are negative 4 and negative 4. Yes. And these 2 combined together, negative 16 plus 6, so that must be negative 10 equal 0. Now let me make another point. Now we have this negative 4 here, negative 4 there. Is that a coincidence that we have negative 4 there as well? Well, let's check our previous example, right? Let's go up and check the previous example. Now, when we divide this number by 2, that was 3 here, and 3 was the number that we used here and here again, right? So is this a coincidence that also we use negative 4 here and here? Well, it's not coincident. is actually always going to be this number that ends up here and here. It's always going to be those two numbers. Okay, so we can rewrite this as x minus 4 square equal, I'm going to move this negative 10 to the other side, become positive 10. Just like that. Right? We rewrite it positive 10. Leave some room here for taking square root and all that. So what's next step? We're going to take the square root here, take the square root here. Whenever that we take the square root, we need this automatic plus and minus. Right? Always like that. And then square root and square will cancel out. So this end up being x negative 4 equal plus minus square root of 10. And I'm going to move this 4 to negative 4 to the other side. So we have x equal 4 minus square root of 10 and x equal 4 plus square root of 10. We have these two answers for this question. You have these two answers for that question, right? This is how you use to complete the square technique to solve quadratic equation.